Hey there. Tonight, you'll step into the life of a cowboy in the real Wild West. Not the gunslinger, not the legend, just the man who rides too far, eats too little, and sleeps under cold stars. There's no glory here, just dust in your teeth, sweat on your skin, and silence that doesn't end. The cattle move, the days blur, and your body learns to keep going because it has to. So turn down the lights, let yourself breathe, and sink slowly into the long, quiet ache of the cowboy's world. You wake up before the sun, though you wouldn't call it waking. It's more like surfacing, slow and unsure, from a night that never truly let go. The ground beneath you is hard, colder than you remembered, as if the soil itself had turned against the idea of sleep. Your back aches, every joint feels carved from dry wood. The saddle that served as your pillow has shifted in the night, and now your neck throbs in a dull, persistent rhythm. You don't open your eyes immediately. The wind tells you enough. It brushes across your face, dry and thin, carrying that familiar sting of dust and early morning chill. The air smells like smoke long gone, leather soaked in sweat, and the faintest trace of horse manure nearby. You inhale it without reaction. This is what morning is now. No warmth, no walls. Just open sky that offers no comfort and earth that gives nothing back. Eventually, you shift, just enough to push yourself into a sitting position. Your limbs resist at first, stiff with the weight of yesterday. There's a blanket twisted around your legs, mostly useless, half damp from the dew that settled during the night. You unravel it, fingers numb, and shake off what little moisture you can. One boot is off. You don't remember removing it. A rock presses into your thigh where you must have rolled in your sleep. You brush it away. No point cursing it. The hat beside you is coated in a thin layer of dust, its brim warped slightly from the weight of your head. You slap it against your leg once, maybe twice, before placing it back where it belongs. The sky is just starting to change, dark blue softening into something lighter. Not yet day, but no longer night. There's a kind of silence now that only comes before the animals start to stir. A hollow quiet that doesn't comfort you, but reminds you that you're still here. You glance around, not expecting anything to be different. The fire is out, reduced to black bones buried in gray ash. A few others lie nearby in similar heaps. Blankets, hats, boots, sleep. No one talks. No one has the energy. Some pretend to sleep a little longer, eyes closed against the morning, as if that would delay the weight of the day. But you know it doesn't work like that. Time moves regardless. One of the horses snorts somewhere behind you. You hear the leather creak as it shifts, maybe catching your scent, maybe just restless. You'll need to check the rope soon, make sure none of them wandered. Your back twinges again as you reach for your gear. The canteen is there, lukewarm from a night curled against it. You take a sip and it tastes like metal, old leather, and dust. You drink anyway. There won't be anything better for hours, maybe longer. There's no hunger yet, only a dull awareness that it's coming. Last night's meal was hardtack and beans, and both sit heavy in your gut like regret. You rub your eyes, scratch at your stubbled jaw, and stretch once more just to feel something shift. A cough erupts from one of the others, dry, hollow, then silence again. You stand, slow and cautious, and the blanket slips from your shoulders to the ground, forgotten. The wind picks up a little now, tugging at your coat, finding the seams where cold likes to live. You check the sky again. Still no sun. Just that pale, indifferent light that means another day is beginning, whether you want it to or not. And so you gather your things, saddle roll, bedroll, rope, whatever you have that still works, and you start to move. Not because you feel ready, not because you want to, but because the ground will never be warm enough to stay. It settles into you slowly, without permission. At first, it's just on your boots, caught in the folds of leather, rising in little clouds with every step. Then it's on your pants, clinging to the sweat behind your knees, turning fabric stiff and brown. After a few days, it finds your shirt, your cuffs, your collar, like it's trying to replace the cloth altogether. You wipe it off, of course, at first. You brush and slap and shake, but it always comes back. It waits for the wind or for the stir of hooves, or for the scrape of your own coat against a rock. And then it lifts, spins, and settles again. You stop noticing when exactly it changes from outside to inside. Your hands become stained with it, the cracks in your knuckles packed with pale grit. Under your fingernails, it builds a dark, dry ridge. You could dig at it with a knife, but it would be back by nightfall. Even water doesn't help. You've tried. You've bent over creeks and poured canteens, rubbed and scrubbed until your skin went raw. But it clings beneath the surface, beyond the first layer of clean. You can wash your face and it will still be in your eyes the next morning. You can rinse your mouth and still taste it on your tongue when you swallow. There's a kind of weight to it, not just physical, though it coats your lashes and dries in the corners of your mouth, but something quieter, something deeper, like memory or grief. It never really leaves. It gets into the lining of your hat, the crease of your boots, the seams of your saddle. It dulls the shine of your belt buckle. It softens the edge of your knife. You try to tell yourself it's just part of the land, something everyone deals with. But not everyone carries it the same way. Sometimes, in the still moments, just before sleep, or while the others are checking the herd, you'll feel it move in your nose, a slow, scratchy twitch that makes you cough. Not a big cough, not a showy one, just the dry kind, where you know nothing will come up. It's back there, behind the sinuses, behind the throat, a part of you. On long rides, when the wind picks up, you'll taste it again. You'll lick your lip and feel the grains there, like ground bone. You'll squint against the gusts, but it won't matter. It gets past everything, into your ears, into your eyes. Sometimes you rub so hard you make the skin red and sore, and still it lingers. It blurs the world just enough to keep you from ever feeling clean. The others look the same. Creased skin, dry lips, that slow blink of people who haven't seen clear water in weeks. But no one mentions it. There's nothing to say. You breathe it in with every step. It becomes the air you move through. Over time, you begin to forget what clean ever felt like. Not washed. Anyone can splash water on their face. But clean. That deep kind. The kind that comes with bed sheets and closed windows and soap that smells like something other than ash. You stop expecting it. The dust becomes a second skin, a quiet film that covers everything you do. It hides in your food. You chew on hard beans and bread that's picked up bits of the trail, and you don't spit them out. What's the point? It's in the coffee, too. A little grit at the bottom of the tin cup. You drink it anyway. You tell yourself it adds flavor. It doesn't. But that's easier than thinking about how long it's been since your body was yours. The land takes pieces of you in quiet ways, and the dust is the proof. Every night, you lie down with it still on your skin. And every morning, you rise and it's the first thing you feel. You don't curse it, you don't fight it, you just live in it. Because here, it's not something outside of you anymore. It's part of who you are. It's not that the food is bad. Bad would mean it had once tried to be good and failed. This never tries. It's fuel, and only barely. Every morning, you wake to the same thought. What's left? Sometimes there's coffee, if the grounds haven't run out or gone stale. It tastes like burned dirt and bitterness, but it's warm, and warmth is rare. There's always beans, dry when you carry them, soft when they're boiled long enough, which they rarely are. Sometimes there's bacon, old, hard, rimmed with salt and grease, the edges curling like paper left in the sun. You chew it until your jaw aches, because there's no softness left in it, no fat that melts, just meat that resists you the whole way down. You don't savor it. You don't enjoy it. You chew and swallow and do it again the next day, not because you like it, because it's there. Lunch is the same as breakfast, and dinner is the same as lunch. No timing matters out here. You eat when you can, and sometimes that means nothing until dusk. Bread is rare, and when you do have it, it's the kind that's more memory than food, stale, crumbling, with the crust harder than your boots. You dip it in coffee if you're lucky. If not, it flakes in your fingers and leaves you hungrier. There's no butter, no jam, just dryness that turns to paste in your mouth. Occasionally, if someone hunted, there's jerky. But jerky's just meat with all the life drained out of it. Tough, stringy, salted to the point of pain. You gnaw on it like a dog with a stick. And when your teeth finally break through, you're too tired to enjoy it. You keep chewing anyway. Because hunger's worse. Always worse. You start to forget what flavor was. Sweet becomes something you remember, not something you taste. Sour is a story. Salt is a constant, but it doesn't excite you. It just keeps things from rotting. You don't crave variety anymore. You crave fullness, the dull, leaden kind that settles in your gut and stops the gnawing for a while. You don't ask for spice. You wouldn't recognize it if you had it. On good days, someone might share a can of peaches. You eat it slowly, each piece a ghost of something your mouth used to know. But that's rare. Most days are just more beans. Sometimes you don't even heat them. You eat them cold from the tin, with a spoon that tastes like rust and oil. Your stomach churns, but not in protest. In routine, like it's learned how to digest misery. When you dream, it's never of gold or women or glory. It's of stew, real stew, potatoes, carrots, meat that falls apart when you touch it. Maybe a thick slice of bread, still warm from a fire with butter melting into the cracks. The kind of meal that stays with you. But that's just a dream. In reality, food is measured in weight and spoilage, in how long it can last in a saddlebag, in whether it can survive the heat, the cold, the shaking of 1,000 miles. You eat the same thing every day because anything else is risk. And out here, risk is just another word for going hungry. So you stop hoping. You pack the same rations, boil the same water, chew the same tasteless meat. You don't complain. You don't praise it. You just eat, because the work won't do itself, and an empty stomach only makes everything heavier. The food doesn't change. But you do, you get quieter, slower, until the act of eating isn't pleasure. It's persistence. It's survival. And somehow, that becomes enough. The saddle isn't just where you sit. It's where you live. You spend more time in it than anywhere else. More than on the ground. More than by the fire. More than asleep. Your legs mold around it. Your hips creak when you rise from it. Your back hums with a dull, constant ache that starts between the shoulder blades and works its way down, vertebra by vertebra, like slow water finding cracks in stone. The leather has long since lost its softness. It bites into your thighs and bruises your knees. It presses into the same muscles, the same bones, day after day, until you forget how it felt to walk freely, without the weight of the stirrups, without the tension in your spine. You shift now and then, but there's only so many ways you can sit before the pain just changes shape. You don't scream. You don't groan. You just absorb it, like the horse absorbs your movement. The saddle is your table when you eat, your pillow when you rest, your wall when you need to lean against something solid. You hang your gear from it. You tie your rope to it. You wrap your coat behind it when the sun is high and the sweat runs cold down your back. It creaks when you move. It sings its own music, faint leather snaps, groaning straps, the occasional pop of a seam loosening with time. Every part of it smells like use, oil, hair, dust, and your own scent, soaked deep into the grain. When you sleep, your head rests against its edge. When you wake, the stiffness in your neck tells you it never meant to hold you. But it's the only thing that stays with you from sunup to sundown, ride to ride, mile to mile. People come and go, horses die, but the saddle stays, and it remembers. Your thighs are calloused where they meet the leather. The insides of your knees have rubbed raw, again and again, until the nerves there don't react the way they used to. Sometimes the chafing bleeds. Sometimes it just burns. You learn to shift your weight, to lean into the pain before it numbs. It's easier that way. You tie your saddle tight every morning, tightening the cinch with hands that have learned exactly how much tension the leather can take before it complains. You adjust the stirrups, not for comfort. Comfort doesn't exist here, but for function. You ride with your knees bent just enough to absorb the jolt of every step, every stumble, every sudden stop. And when you dismount, you feel shorter, like your legs have forgotten what it means to straighten fully. Sometimes they tremble under you. You let them. The ground feels foreign anyway, like something you weren't meant to stand on. There's no ceremony to the saddle, no honor, just routine. You clean it because you have to. You oil it when the cracks start to show. You patch it with whatever scraps you have left, and you pray the stitching holds. You curse it when it slips, when the girth loosens and the horse bucks. But even then, you never blame it. It's not the saddle's fault. It's just the way of things. Out here, everything becomes a burden. The hat on your head, the boots on your feet, the gun at your side. But the saddle is the heaviest, not because of its weight, but because of its constancy. It never lets you forget where you are. It presses into your flesh until it reshapes you. And when you lie down at night, the ghost of it stays with you, in your bones, in your muscles, in the way your body folds without thinking. You don't resent it. You don't love it. You carry it, like everything else. It stretches for miles, this quiet. Not the kind that soothes or comforts, not the kind you'd find beside a warm fire or under a thick quilt. This silence has edges. It presses in on you, even as the land lies wide and open. You think at first that it might be peaceful, that the absence of voices, of machines, of crowds might offer something calm. But it doesn't. It lingers. Heavy, absolute. You hear everything in it. The shifting of your coat as you breathe, the faint creak of your saddle, the drag of your own tongue against the roof of your mouth. A horse snorts somewhere behind you. Another stomps, shifting its weight. Then nothing again. Just wind. Always wind. Not howling, just brushing, light and persistent, like something that never runs out of breath. You try to listen past it, as if maybe something's there. But there isn't. Only your thoughts, and they are louder than they should be. The others don't talk much, and neither do you. Words become expensive out here. No one spends them unless they need to. You ride in lines or in loose clusters, but every man might as well be alone. When someone coughs, it sounds strange, like it doesn't belong. You forget what laughter sounds like. Sometimes you hear it in memory, a bright, sudden burst from a time long gone, but it feels like it came from someone else's mouth. Conversation fades into grunts, short commands, half nods. You begin to lose the habit of language, like an unused tool growing dull. When you speak, your voice sounds foreign, hoarse, dry, unused. It surprises even you. You catch yourself whispering things under your breath, just to hear something human. But even that feels foolish after a while. The silence absorbs it too quickly, like the land is swallowing it whole. At night, it deepens. You lie on your blanket, eyes open, the stars sharp above you. There's no fire. Sometimes, there's no moon. Just dark, and the slow shifting of animals. The occasional breath beside you. You listen for it, not because you want company, but because the alternative is worse. Your own heartbeat fills your ears. You think too much. About things you can't change. About things you lost. Regrets that have no shape, only weight. They come in the quiet, when there's nothing else to hold them back. The silence doesn't care. It lets every thought through. Things you haven't remembered in years start to surface. A voice. A face. Something you said once that came out wrong, and then another, and another. The silence isn't still. It's a flood, and you just lie there letting it rise. You used to crave quiet, in towns, in bars, in crowds that never let you breathe. You thought silence would be a relief, and maybe for the first few days, it was. But now you know better. Now you see how silence can wear you down, just as surely as work, just as slowly as hunger. It doesn't yell. It doesn't strike. It just waits. It peels away the layers you thought made you strong. You start to wonder who you are without noise, without mirrors, without reply. You speak less and think more. You remember things in loops. You listen for sounds that don't come. A song, a bell, a name, even your own. But nothing answers. Just the wind, just the horses, just the beat of hooves and the creak of leather, and the long, patient silence that fills everything else. It starts as a whisper, just a soft patter on your hat, almost gentle, like maybe it'll pass. but it never does. The rain here doesn't pour all at once. It seeps in slowly, then stays for hours, sometimes days. You keep moving through it because there's no shelter waiting. No barn, no roof, no canvas to crawl under. Just open land and a sky that doesn't care. Your coat, already stiff from old sweat and dust, darkens first, then grows heavy. It sticks to your shoulders, to your arms, until every movement feels like dragging wet cloth through molasses. The cold sets in under it, not the kind that bites, but the slow, soaking kind, the kind that creeps into your sleeves, into your boots, into your bones. Your hands are the first to go numb, then your feet, then your thoughts. You grip the reins tighter, though your fingers resist you now, stiff and swollen, the joints aching with every tug. The leather's slick, the saddle slippery. The horse moves slower in the mud, its flanks streaked with wet grit, its breath coming hard and steady. Water runs down your back in small rivulets, collects at the waistband of your pants, pools inside your boots until your socks squish with every step. You don't bother trying to keep anything dry. It's too late for that. The blanket's wet. The pack's wet. The matches, if they still work, will have to be dried over a fire you haven't built yet, if you build one at all. The others around you are just as soaked. No one speaks. There's nothing to say. Every breath forms a little cloud, even in the daylight. You pull your hat lower, as if that'll help, but the water finds a way down your neck anyway. It always does. There's a rawness to the skin now, under your arms, behind your knees, at the line of your collar, where wet fabric rubs soft flesh over and over. You feel it blooming slowly, a sting that grows with each movement. Chafing turns to blisters, blisters to open skin, and still you ride, still you walk, because stopping isn't an option. The herd needs to move. The work doesn't wait for the weather. The cows are out there in the same rain, stumbling through brush and slick stone, and if one wanders too far, you follow. Even if your boots are full of water, even if your lips are blue. You wipe your nose on your sleeve, not out of manners, but because the drip won't stop. Your breath feels heavier, damp in your chest. You start to cough, a short, dry thing that turns wetter the longer it lasts. At night, there's no dry ground. The earth turns to sponge. You try to find high ground, but it only takes a few minutes for the water to find you. You lay your blanket down anyway. You curl up in it, wet on wet, and pull it over your head. It smells like mold and old wool. It does nothing against the cold. You lie there, shaking, not from fear, not even from pain, but from the body's quiet surrender. The rain doesn't stop for you. It taps against your back all night long, like a finger reminding you that even now, there's no rest. You fall asleep anyway, not deeply, not well, but just enough to start again. And when you wake, you don't expect the sky to be clear. You just rise slowly, clothing heavier than before, and mount your horse like it's just another dry day. Because out here, rain is just another kind of silence. Cold, relentless, and not worth complaining about. They don't know your name. They don't know the day of the week. They don't care if it's your birthday, or if your ribs are bruised, or if you've barely slept in 3 nights. They just move, slowly when you want them fast, suddenly when you want them still. 100 heads, maybe more, all muscle and bone and instinct. They walk when they shouldn't. Stop when they mustn't. One turns and the rest follow, even if it's toward nothing. And when one runs, you follow. It doesn't matter if you've just dismounted. It doesn't matter if your leg is stiff or your hands are raw. That's your job. You swing back into the saddle, curse under your breath, and push forward. Because the cattle don't wait. They don't apologize. They just go. And if you lose one, you lose more than beef. You lose time. You lose money. You lose a little piece of yourself you already didn't have much left of. Sometimes they bolt in the dark. A noise. A shift in the wind. Something you didn't hear or see. You wake to hooves pounding in the distance, yells from the others, the slap of leather, and the metallic rattle of stirrups being thrown over half-awake horses. You ride half-blind, with only the moon or your memory to guide you. The herd has scattered. Dust and bodies and confusion. You circle, whistle, shout, wave your hat, anything to push them back into place. They crash into each other, dumb and frightened, and you have to make yourself louder than their fear. There's no time to think. Just act. Just move. It might take an hour. It might take until morning. And when it's done, you don't sit, you don't eat. You ride beside them, eyes scanning for the next wanderer, because they'll do it again, always. You don't get to pick your moments. One cow strays while you're tending a sore foot. Another limps off while you're boiling water. You tie everything down, leave your canteen behind, and go after them. Through brush, through mud, through terrain that wasn't made for horses or men. You track by hoof prints and scat, by instinct. You push branch out of your face, thorns tearing your sleeves. You ride harder than you should. Sometimes you catch sight of it in the distance, a dark shape, moving steady, unaware or uncaring that it's dragging you with it. You push the horse faster, ignoring the protest in your knees, the burn in your thighs. You get close enough to turn it, to holler, to wave, to make yourself known. And if it runs again, you follow. You always follow. Because if it disappears, it's on you. No one says that out loud. They don't need to. You already know. And when you're hurt, it doesn't stop. A twisted ankle, a bruised rib, a cut that won't clot. You keep going. One hand on the horn, one hand on the reins, gritting your teeth with every step. You wrap the wound if you can. If not, you bleed into your glove, into your boot, into the dirt behind you. The cattle don't look back. They don't slow down. They don't see the blood. They just chew and blink and move forward. You don't hate them for it. Hate takes too much energy, but you learn not to expect anything from them. Not even stillness. Not even ease. You just work, and because that's what this is. Not a life of freedom. Not a story worth telling. Just labor that doesn't care who you are or how you feel. And the cattle, like the land, like the sky, keep moving, whether you're ready or not. They used to look different once. You don't remember exactly how. Maybe smoother, maybe lighter, maybe without that strange, polished roughness that comes from never letting go of anything. Now they're just tools, split at the knuckles, calloused at every bend. The cracks run along the skin like dry creek beds, some deep enough to sting, others just waiting to bleed. Dirt lives beneath your nails, permanent now, no matter how often you scrape with the tip of your knife. The fingers are thick, swollen around the joints, and the nails are chipped and uneven. You don't remember the last time they all looked the same. Some are flattened at the ends. One curls just a little where it healed wrong. You stopped noticing the pain a long time ago. Now it's just a quiet pressure, a background hum. When a new cut opens, you look at it for a second. Maybe press it shut with your thumb, maybe don't. Then you move on. Rope burn never truly goes away. It fades, darkens, leaves behind a glossy patch that stretches when you flex. The worst spots are on the palms, where you grip, where you pull, where the reins ride all day long. The skin there peels in strips, sometimes raw underneath, sometimes yellow with callus. In the cold, it cracks. In the heat, it blisters. If the saddle slips and you catch it wrong, your thumb might twist or split. You wrap it in cloth if you have time, if you have cloth. If not, you wipe the blood off on your pant leg and grip tighter. The cattle don't wait. The horse doesn't care. You tie knots with fingers that can't feel the thread. You light fires with hands too stiff to strike flint cleanly. Sometimes it takes 3-4 tries before the spark catches. You don't curse. You don't even breathe hard. You just try again. Burns are the most surprising. They come from coffee pots, firewood, the sun, or the barrel of a gun left too long in the heat. The skin puckers, bubbles, dies. You feel it for days afterward, a slow throbbing beneath the top layer. Some burns go deep, others just scar and fade, but they all leave a mark. The hands carry everything, the mistakes, the moments of carelessness, the price of moving too quickly or too slowly. Even the joints betray you. Swollen from too much gripping, sore from cold mornings. One knuckle always aches before the weather shifts. It's become your forecast. You rub it sometimes without thinking. The pain never leaves, not entirely. It just becomes part of the rhythm. You don't hope for it to stop. You just hope it doesn't get worse. That it won't swell to the point where you can't hold a rope or lift your saddle, because then you're no use to anyone. And out here, use is all you are. You try not to look at them too long. In the firelight, they seem older than the rest of you, worn, cracked, tired. They twitch when you're still, as if remembering every cut at once. Sometimes they curl in your sleep. Sometimes they ache so badly you wake up without knowing why. But there's no healing. Not really. Bandages don't last. Salves dry up or spill. Clean water is too rare to waste on skin. You rub dirt into the worst of it to stop the bleeding. You hold a rag in place until it sticks. Then you tear it off when you need that hand again. There's no ceremony, no rest, just more work, more rope, more heat, more cold. You look at the hands of the others and see the same story. No one asks, no one offers help. Everyone here has hands that forgot softness, that gave up on being anything but worn. And still, they keep working, because that's what they do, because that's what you are. Hands that never heal and keep going anyway. You build it small. There's never enough wood for anything more. Twigs, scraps of dry grass, maybe a few sticks stolen from under a mesquite. You crouch low, blocking the wind with your back, hands stiff from cold and coated in dust. It takes time. Your fingers don't move right anymore, and the flint doesn't always catch. You curse under your breath, not from anger, but from habit. The spark finally lands, flickers, bites into the dry kindling. You blow gently, lips cracked, breath visible even though it's not yet night. It flares, small, uneven, stubborn. the first glow against the creeping dark. And for a few moments, that's everything. Light, heat, something alive in a world that mostly isn't. The others gather slowly. No one speaks. They just come closer, drawn not to each other, but to the flame. Everyone holds their hands out. Everyone leans in. It's the only warmth you'll get tonight, and everyone knows it. The heat doesn't spread far. A few inches beyond the flame, and the cold creeps right back in. Your boots stay frozen. Your back stays damp. But your fingers begin to move again. Your jaw unclenches. Someone might pour coffee. Someone else pokes at the coals. It feels almost like peace. But only almost. The fire's too small to offer comfort. Just enough to remind you what comfort once felt like. The smoke stings your eyes. It clings to your clothes, to your beard, to your breath. You don't mind. You'd take the smell of smoke over the chill any night. You stare into the flames because there's nothing else to look at. No books, no walls. Just orange light dancing over tired faces. The heat touches your knees, then fades, then returns again with each gust of wind. You pull your coat tighter. You hold the moment as long as you can, but it's already slipping away. There's never enough fuel. You ration the fire the way you ration everything else. Tight, careful, without hope. You add one stick, then wait. Another, then stop. Can't waste it all now. There are more nights ahead. Always more nights. You think about feeding the fire more, making it bigger, stronger, letting it last. But you don't. You can't. You'll need those sticks tomorrow or the night after. You tell yourself the cold isn't so bad, that your coat still holds some warmth, that your blanket isn't soaked. You lie, because the truth is too heavy. So the fire stays small. It flickers. It dances. It gives you enough to remember warmth, but not enough to chase the cold out of your bones. And then, before you're ready, it begins to die. You watch it fade, orange to red, red to gray. No one says anything. No one tries to save it. You all just watch. When the last ember turns black, the night rushes in like water. You feel it instantly in your chest, your hands, your breath. The heat was never enough to hold the cold back, just enough to distract you from it. Now it's gone, and the dark is absolute. The stars don't give warmth. The moon offers no comfort. You lie down near the ashes, because even cooling coals feel better than nothing. You pull your blanket close, curl in on yourself, and shiver as quietly as you can. The others do the same. No one asks for more fire. No one expects it. It's part of the routine. You don't get used to the cold, not really. You just stop fighting it. You learn how to sleep in pieces, 10 minutes here, 20 there, waking each time your body forgets how to stay warm. And in the morning, you rise stiff and brittle, already thinking about the next fire. The one that will burn fast, and then be gone. It starts slow, like most things out here. First, it's just the horse, wet hide and sweat, the musky weight of an animal that never leaves your sit. Then the leather, soaked with oil and dust, pressing into your coat, your gloves, your saddlebags. The smoke joins next, from countless fires built with green wood or dried manure, leaving a bitter, acrid cling in your hair and the fabric of your shirt. Then the wool, wet, old, unwashed for too long. It traps everything, holds every scent like a sponge that won't dry. You carry it on your shoulders, around your waist, and sometimes even against your skin. Each piece of clothing tells a story, and none of them smell like yours. You sleep in it, ride in it, work in it, and after a while, your own scent disappears as source under the layers of everything else. If it's still there, you couldn't say where. You try not to notice. You tell yourself it's normal, that everyone smells like this, and they do. Every man in the line carries the same blend: animal, ash, salt, dirt. It clings to your hat, stiffened by sun and sweat. It coats your scarf, which once held a color, but now only holds dust. When you shift in the saddle, the smell rises from your own body. Not sharp or sudden, just steady, deep, familiar. You don't recoil. There's nothing to recoil from. It's not rot, not filth, just the slow buildup of long days without water, without soap, without change. Even your hands, blistered and cut, have taken on the scent of rope and iron, blood and dust. You scratch your neck and catch it again, old smoke and old skin, and still nothing that feels like you. On rare occasions, you cross a river deep enough to wash. You strip down quick, hoping no one watches, and slip into the cold. It shocks your body, closes your throat, makes your heart hammer. But it feels clean. You rub at your arms, your chest, your face, hoping to scrub something loose. The dirt clouds around you in lazy spirals. You dive, surface, scrub again. And for a few moments, you imagine you've changed something. You step out, dripping, chilled, and hopeful. But your clothes are the same. The same coat, the same socks, the same boots that never truly dried from the last rain. And within minutes, the scent returns. The leather, the wool, the skin. It soaks it back in like nothing ever happened. The river gave you nothing but wetness, and maybe one breath of difference before it all settled back into place. Eventually, you stop wondering what you used to smell like. Was it soap? Pine? Something from your mother's kitchen? You can't recall. Those scents belong to other people now. People who sleep in rooms, who wash their clothes, who smell like nothing at all. Out here, you become the trail. You become the smoke, the horse, the earth, the old stew bubbling in a dented pot. And when you walk into town, if you do, you see how others look at you. Not with disgust, not with pity, just with distance. Like you're not quite part of the same world anymore. And maybe you aren't. You nod, tip your hat, keep walking. Because there's no changing it. The smell isn't dirt. It's the work, the wear, the life. It's who you are now. And even if you stood still, even if you stopped everything, it would still cling to you. Not because you chose it, but because you've been here long enough that it chose you. There's no one watching. No one waiting at the end of the trail to cheer or clap or call your name. You ride, not for recognition, not for pride, but because the work has to be done. The sky doesn't remember you. The land doesn't care. Each mile looks like the last, and the next, and the one after that. You ride through it all with no expectation but that anyone will mark the distance you've come. There's no flag to plant, no medal to earn, no tale to tell. Just the steady rhythm of hooves on dry ground, the creak of leather, the silent breath of a horse that knows this road as well as you do. The job is the same today as it was yesterday. The cattle need moving. The fence needs mending. The lost calf needs finding. You do it not because it's noble, but because it's yours. You're here. That's reason enough. Some days it feels endless. You rise before the sun, sore and half asleep, and climb into the saddle while your fingers are still stiff with cold. You ride until your legs forget how to move on their own, until your eyes blur from dust and distance. And when the day ends, it doesn't really end. It just folds into the next one. No one counts your miles. No one tallies your hours. When the herd makes it through, there's no applause. Just a nod, maybe. A grunt. A fire too small to matter. You eat in silence, sleep in pieces, and do it all again. The stories folks tell in town about cowboys, they don't look like this. They don't show the chafed thighs, the cracked lips, the blood-stained gloves. They don't show the loneliness, or the repetition, or the deep, humming silence that stretches between you and the horizon. You pass through places no one will remember. Flatlands without a name. Hills that never made it onto any map. The only thing that changes is the direction of the wind. You think sometimes that maybe you'll leave a mark, something small, a carved name on a post, a forgotten knife under a rock. But even those fade. The rain washes it away. The sun bleaches it until it's nothing. And the people, if you meet them, won't ask who you are. They'll ask what you're doing, how many head you're driving, how long you'll stay. And then you'll move on, leaving no more trace than the cattle themselves. The towns are temporary. The trails shift with the season. Nothing holds. And when you're gone, you're just gone. No one sends word. No one follows. There's no glory in this kind of life. Just motion. Still, you ride. Not for memory. Not for thanks. But because you said you would. Because someone handed you the reins and you didn't let go. Maybe that's the only kind of honor you get out here. Not the kind people write about. The kind that sits quiet in your chest and tells you to keep going. To keep riding, even when it hurts. Even when it's thankless. Even when there's no reward waiting for you beyond the next ridge. The land doesn't clap, the sky doesn't bow. But you ride anyway. Because the work is yours. Because the road is still there. Because sometimes being forgotten isn't the worst thing. It's being remembered for something you're not that hurts more. And out here, you know exactly who you are. Even if no one else does, even if no one ever will. It comes all at once. Not gently, not slowly, but like a body falling into water. Sudden, heavy, complete. You lie down out of habit, not hope. Because sleep out here isn't something you reach for. It just takes you. One moment you're sitting by the dying fire, boots still on, hands still dirty, eyes barely open. The next, you're gone. Not dreaming, not resting, just gone. It doesn't feel like sleep so much as absence, like the world fades out and you with it. There's no comfort in it, no soft pillow or warm blanket or quiet thoughts to carry you under. You curl around your saddlebag or coat or whatever's closest, and the cold presses against your spine until your muscles stop resisting. That's what finally lets you sleep. Not peace, not release. Just the body surrendering to weight and fatigue. When you wake, nothing's different. Your mouth is dry. Your shoulders ache. Your fingers twitch like they've never stopped gripping the reins. You lie still for a moment, staring at the pale sky above. Not because you're rested, but because you don't want to move yet. There's a tightness in your back that sleep didn't touch. A stiffness in your knees that only deepened through the night. You try to stretch, but even that feels like labor. The blanket you used is damp from dew, and the air has that thin, sharp chill that cuts before the sun rises. You blink and it feels like nothing passed, like there was no night at all, just a blink between two stretches of work. Sleep didn't soften you, it hardened you further. It sealed the pain into your joints and bones like a layer of frost. You rise not because you're ready, but because you have to. Sometimes you forget falling asleep at all. You remember sitting, then waking. Maybe someone stirred. Maybe the wind changed. Maybe a horse shifted its weight and snapped you back to the surface. But sleep, that was just the gap in between. And it wasn't enough. Never is. You walk through the day with your eyelids half drawn, your mind dull around the edges. Words come slower, reactions lag. The dust feels heavier. The saddle bites deeper. You think of sleep like something you used to know, the kind that healed, that wrapped around you like a quilt. Out here, there's none of that. Sleep is just the pause before you're needed again. A dark space between obligations. You don't chase it. You just collapse into it when you can, knowing it won't give you anything back. And yet you keep going, day after day, because the cattle move whether you're rested or not. The horses need feeding. The fire needs building. You ride half asleep, eyes scanning the horizon, body moving on instinct. You start to forget the difference between sleep and exhaustion, between rest and stopping. Sometimes you sit still long enough to drift, just for a second, head nodding forward before a jolt wakes you again. You don't apologize. No one does. Everyone's the same, hollow-eyed, shoulders hunched, voices low. Sleep doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to the trail, and the trail never offers more than it has to. So you take what you can, a few minutes, a breath, a moment. Not because it helps, but because without it, even this thin, brittle life would fall apart. You sleep like a machine powers down. Quiet, sudden, empty, and then you start again. Because that's all there is. You don't travel light because it's noble. You travel light because there's no other way. Everything you have is in that roll strapped to the back of your saddle. Tied tight, worn thin, stained from dust and sweat and rain that came down sideways. No trunk, no closet, no drawers to slide open and find something new. Just a blanket, a spare shirt if you're lucky, a rusted tin cup, a knife that's gone dull but still cuts if you press hard enough. Maybe a bit of rope. Maybe a torn letter folded so many times the creases are deeper than the ink. And that's it. That's the whole of what you own. It rides with you day after day, flapping slightly with every bump in the trail. You know the weight of it without thinking. You know the sound it makes when it drops to the ground. There's comfort in that kind of familiarity, even if the comfort is cold. There's no room for extras. If something doesn't serve a purpose, it gets left behind. You learned that early, when a snapped strap in the middle of nowhere meant a half-day wasted, when a bedroll packed too full made your horse stumble. You don't carry what you don't need. There's no backup, no second pair, no safety. If your flask cracks, you drink from your hands. If your coat tears, you stitch it with thread pulled from the hem of your own shirt. Every object you carry, you've chosen carefully. Not for beauty, not for sentiment, for use. And still, most of it is failing. The tin cup leaks slightly at the seam. The knife has a notch in the blade that catches on rope. The shirt smells like smoke no matter how often you rinse it. But you keep them. Because out here, even flawed things matter. At night, you unroll it all beside the fire, or what passes for one. You spread the blanket, lay your head on the bundle, curl into yourself and try to pretend it's enough. It rarely is. The blanket is too thin, the shirt has holes, the flask tastes of rust, but it's yours. Not in the way that brings pride, in the way that says, "This is what I've kept, what hasn't broken, what hasn't been taken by time or accident or distance." You wrap yourself in that thin layer of ownership and let it shield you from the open dark. And in the morning you pack it again, tight and neat, with hands that remember every fold. There's no ritual in it, no ceremony, just habit. Just another step before the next ride begins. You meet others sometimes, carrying less or more. Some with saddlebags bulging, trying to drag comfort into the wilderness. They don't last long. The trail strips them down just like it did to you, until all that remains is the bare, bitter truth. Out here, you are what you can carry, and what you can carry is never enough. You don't own a home. You don't own a bed. You don't own time. Just this roll, just the knife, just the cracked flask. And maybe that's the clearest picture of who you are now. Not what you've gained, but what you've managed to hold on to. No one will see these things and know your story. No one will read that letter or notice the way the blanket still smells faintly of the plains after rain. But you know. And out here, that has to be enough. Because when the ride begins again, you won't take anything more with you. Just the roll, and the silence, and the road ahead. The fire went out hours ago. Maybe it was never much of a fire to begin with, just a weak flicker of dry grass and twigs that gave you half an hour of heat before shrinking into silence. You watched it fade with tired eyes, too cold to move, too numb to care. The blanket wrapped around your shoulders is damp, not from rain, but from the breath of the night itself. It settles into the fabric, into your skin, into the hollow of your chest where warmth used to live. You curl tighter, knees to stomach, face to elbow, and wait for the shivering to slow. It doesn't. Your teeth don't chatter. Not anymore. That part passed hours ago. Now it's just the ache of stillness, the kind that creeps along your spine and settles in the base of your skull. There's no escape in the blanket, no fire to rebuild. Only the dark and the wind and the slow laws of sensation. You hear the horse before you see it, a low breath, a shift of weight, a soft thud of hoof against packed ground. You turn your head, eyes barely open, and watch as it steps closer, ears twitching, tail swaying slightly. The steam rises from its nostrils, visible in the pale moonlight, like smoke from something deeper. You reach out, not with urgency, but with instinct. The horse doesn't flinch. It's used to you. You press your hand against its flank, and the heat is immediate, radiating, solid, real, not flickering like fire, not fading like wool. You move closer, half crawling, dragging your blanket behind you like a second skin. You settle against its side, shoulder to belly, cheek to hide. The warmth bleeds into you slowly, not sharp like flame, but steady like breath. The horse shifts again, just slightly, and then stands still. It knows what you're doing. It doesn't stop you. Your hands find the coarse hair and hold tight, not to ride, not to guide, just to feel something alive. The rhythm of its breath matches yours after a while. Slow, measured, present. You press your ear against its ribs and listen, not for words, not for answers, but for the quiet thump of something that still moves. It grounds you, keeps you from slipping too far into that cold, thin place where thought starts to drift. The blanket slips down your back, but you don't care. What warmth you have is here, pressed against the side of an animal that doesn't speak, doesn't question, doesn't leave. In the absence of fire, it becomes the fire. In the absence of light, it becomes the anchor. You lie there, not sleeping, not fully awake, and let its body shield you from the kind of cold that takes more than comfort. It takes memory. By morning, the horse has moved, and so have you. Not far, just enough to lose the warmth again. The sun creeps over the edge of the land, but it brings no heat. You sit up slowly, joints stiff, face tight with cold. Your cheek is marked where you pressed it against muscle all night. You don't mind. You pat the horse once, low and quiet, a wordless thank you that doesn't need to be heard. It flicks its ears, tosses its head, then returns to grazing. You gather your blanket, shake off the frost, and roll it into something small enough to carry. There's no fire to stir, no ashes to clean, just the echo of that shared warmth, still lingering in your skin. You saddle the horse, climb on, and ride again. Not warmer, not rested, but still here. And sometimes, that's the only thing that matters. There's no reason to talk most days. You ride beside other men, but the words stopped a long time ago. At first, there were greetings, jokes, short stories passed around a fire. Then came silence, slow but steady, like dust settling on a table that never gets wiped clean. Now the hours pass without sound, just the wind in your ears, the creak of saddle leather, the snort of a horse growing restless. You open your mouth sometimes, as if to speak, and then close it again without a sound. There's nothing to say. No new thoughts. No new news. Just the same trail, the same aches, the same sky overhead that listens but never answers. The quiet isn't lonely, not in the way you once feared. It's something else. Heavier, older. It wraps around you like a second skin until it starts to feel natural, expected. Like words were something from a different life, a different version of yourself. Your voice begins to fade without you noticing. The first time you speak after a few days of silence, it surprises you. Rougher than you remember, slower. It catches in your throat, like it forgot how to form sound. Even your name feels strange when said aloud, like it belongs to someone else. You murmur commands to the horse, and they come out hoarse, unfinished. You hum a tune to yourself one night and don't recognize the pitch. You used to talk in your sleep, or so they said. Not anymore. Even your dreams have grown quiet. When you wake, your throat is dry, but not from snoring or shouting, just from breathing in silence all night long. You start to forget how conversations work, the rhythm, the timing, how it feels to listen and respond without delay. Out here, there's no echo to test your voice against, just open space that absorbs every word. You remember once having a laugh that made people turn their heads, a voice that could call across a field. Now you barely speak above a whisper. It feels wrong to break the stillness, like shouting in a church, like waking someone from a deep sleep. You nod instead. Lift a hand. Point. Grunt. There are fewer people, and even fewer reasons to say anything to them. The men you ride with understand. They're the same. All of you shrinking into yourselves, day by day. You've seen men go weeks without a word, months. You start to wonder how long you could last. How long before the voice disappears entirely? Would anyone notice? Would you? You try saying something just to see how it feels. A sentence, a name. It comes out cracked, hollow, like something long buried being dug up too fast. There's a kind of peace in it, if you can call it that. No one interrupts. No one argues. The world doesn't ask anything of your voice. It asks for your hands, your back, your legs, but not your words. You give those up easily, without struggle, because out here, words don't fix broken leather. They don't find stray cattle. They don't warm your feet at night. So you stop spending them. Save them like water in a drought. And before long, you don't miss them. Not really. You speak less each day, and then less than that, until the only sound that belongs to you is your breathing. Quiet, steady, unnoticed. And when the day ends and the fire burns down and the others lie silent nearby, you say nothing. Not because there's nothing left to say, but because somewhere along the trail you forgot how. They're always there, above you, watching maybe, but never close. You lie on your back at the end of the day, arms crossed over your chest, boots still on, and stare up through the thin, dry air at a sky so wide it could swallow everything. The stars come out early here, bright, sharp, endless. They don't flicker like you remember from windows back home. They burn steady, cold, clear. You can name a few if you try. Pull some half-remembered story from childhood about hunters and sisters and horses in the sky. But the names feel empty now, as if those stories belonged to someone with a bed, with walls, with warmth. You look up not for meaning, not for hope, but because there's nowhere else to look. The fire's burned low. The men around you are already asleep or close to it. The cattle are still. The night is silent except for the occasional twitch of a horse or the hiss of wind in the grass. And above it all, those stars. They don't offer warmth. That's the first thing you learn. They shine down on you like they shine on everything else, indifferently. Whether you're curled up with a coat too thin for the cold, or bleeding from a cut you wrapped in your only clean cloth, they keep shining. Whether you sleep or don't, whether you dream or stare, they're not for you. They're not for anyone. You reach toward them with your eyes, and they don't reach back. Just a sky full of fire that never lowers itself to touch the ground. You start to think of them the way you think of time, something that exists far above you, out of reach, unconcerned with your aching bones or the frost on your boots. Beautiful, yes, but beauty without warmth is just distance, and there is more than enough of that already. Sometimes you hear the others say things, softly to no one, about how peaceful it is, about how the stars make them feel small in a good way, like part of something bigger. You don't feel that. You feel the cold in your fingers, the damp in your collar, the sting of wind against your cheek where your beard hasn't grown in thick enough to guard you. You see the stars and feel not awe, but absence. Not comfort, but contrast. They remind you how far everything is, how far home is, how far sleep is, how far warmth has gone. You try not to think about it. You roll to your side, pull the blanket tighter, close your eyes. But still, through the thin lids and the thinner clouds, you know they're there, watching without watching, burning without caring. And in the morning, they'll be gone, hidden, not absent, covered by the same blue that promises a little heat and a lot of dust. You'll rise with a back that never fully rests, with boots still damp, with a mouth dry from breathing in dirt. And you won't think of the stars again until night falls. And even then, you won't wait for them. They'll just appear, unasked, unneeded, unchanged. They'll shine on cattle and coyotes, on rocks and rivers and the bones of men long buried in this land. They'll shine on you too, but they won't speak. They never have. They just hang there, cold and far and silent, while you pull your coat closer and pretend the fire lasts longer than it does. Out here, everything you see is either fading or running. Only the stars stay. But they don't stay for you. They stay because they were never going anywhere. And that's the loneliest part of all. It starts with a trickle. You don't feel it right away, not as water, just as cold. A soft, creeping chill at the bottom of your boot, like the leathers turned to ice. Maybe it rained the night before. Maybe the grass was still wet when you broke camp. Maybe your socks never dried from yesterday. It doesn't matter. What matters is that it's there now. That slow, steady dampness sinking into the wool, wrapping your toes in its own miserable grip. Your feet shift, trying to find a dry corner inside your boot, but there isn't one. Every step squishes. Every heel strike sends another wave of pressure through skin already soft from moisture. You keep moving anyway, because there's no time to stop, no fire to dry them by, no spare pair to change into. You ride, you walk, you push forward, and with every mile you feel it beginning to form, the heat beneath the cold, the pressure point that will turn to pain. By midday, it's already started. A raw spot just behind the toe, another at the heel. You try adjusting your gait, but the saddle doesn't care. The trail doesn't care. The horse moves the same way it always does, jarring your foot against every edge inside that boot. You imagine the skin peeling, slipping loose like wet paper. You feel the sting each time you shift your weight. The sock rubs against flesh that should have stayed whole. You grit your teeth. You don't complain. The others are riding too, and you know they've felt the same before. Maybe feel it now. No one says it out loud. You dismount, walk a stretch, and the pain changes shape but never leaves. The boot presses in, unforgiving. The moisture keeps the wound open, never letting it seal. You consider stopping, taking it off, wrapping it. But there's no time, no cover, no reason to fall behind just for a blister. By evening, it's worse. The heat has returned, not from the sun, but from inside the boot. A slow burn that pulses with each step. You can feel it now like a heartbeat, like something alive in there, trying to claw its way out. You don't look. You know what you'd see. The sock stuck to skin, the red ring where the flesh has torn, the beginning of blood. You've seen it before. On your own feet, on others. You keep walking anyway. You favor the other foot without thinking, shifting your balance in ways that will hurt later. The pain climbs upward, ankle, calf, knee, changing how you move, how you stand, how you ride. One small wound becomes a weight on your whole body. You could stop, wrap it, rest it. But rest doesn't exist out here. Not really. So you keep going, teeth clenched, boot tight, sock wet, and all the while the blister grows. At night, when you finally lie down, the pain doesn't fade. It throbs. It pulses. You ease the boot off slowly, carefully, but the damage is already done. The sock peels away, stained and torn. The skin beneath is angry, raw, swollen. You touch it and your whole body flinches. You rinse it if there's water. If not, you don't. You press a cloth to it, or a scrap of shirt, or nothing at all. And then you sleep, or try to. You lie there with the foot elevated, or pressed against the earth, or curled beneath your other leg, searching for a position that dulls the sting. There isn't one. You wake with the pain already waiting. You pull the sock back on, grit your teeth, slide the foot into the boot, and feel the wound split a little further. You rise, you mount, you ride. And no one asks how it feels, because they already know. Out here, wet socks mean blisters, and blisters mean nothing, not compared to what still needs doing. It slips away without warning. One day folds into another, quiet and unannounced, like a slow breath you never finish. You wake with the sun, not because you chose to, but because that's how it is. The light tells you to rise, the cold tells you to move, and the hunger tells you it's time to work. There's no calendar, no clock, no difference between a Tuesday and a Thursday, between a weekend and the middle of the week. Just the trail stretching ahead, and the same routine waiting for you on the other side of sleep. The fire gets built, the saddle gets tightened, the cattle get herded, and then the sun starts to fall again. That's your rhythm. That's your time. You don't need to know what day it is, and after a while you forget to care. The names for the days start to sound like something from another life. At first, you tried to keep track. Maybe you marked a scratch on the side of your saddle horn. Maybe you counted coffee tins. Maybe you remembered Sundays because someone said a quiet prayer or tried to hum a hymn that no longer had a melody. But that habit fades fast. The weather changes more often than the schedule. You get rain on what could have been a Monday. You get sun on what might be Christmas. You stop asking the others. They don't know either. No one's keeping time. No one has reason to. You pass through towns, but they don't tell you much. The signs on the saloons are faded. The men at the bar don't speak of dates. The newspapers, if they reach that far, are weeks out of sync. All they offer is a number. But numbers don't matter when the sky is your only ceiling and your bed is made of dirt. You start measuring time differently. Not in days, but in distances. In how long since the last river. In how many nights you've gone without dry socks. In how far the herds moved since the last stampede. You remember the storm more than the date. The broken fence more than the name of the month. You count blisters. You count cups of coffee. You count the times your horse stumbled and you held your breath until it steadied again. That becomes your clock. A long, quiet ticking made of repetition and pain. And when someone does mention the day, maybe a passing traveler, maybe a postmaster in a town too small to matter, you hesitate. You nod. You say, huh, or is that so? But the word means nothing. Thursday, Friday, even Sunday. They're just sounds now. just pieces of a world that keeps spinning whether or not you bother to name its pieces. And yet, something inside you still keeps time in a quiet, worn-out way. Not precise, not sharp, just the slow rhythm of seasons shifting. You know when the mornings start colder, when the sun hangs a little lower in the sky, when the flies don't bite as much. You feel it in your bones more than your thoughts. A dull reminder that you've been doing this longer than you meant to. That the last letter you meant to send was never written. That the boots you thought would last a season are now patched twice over. You lie awake some nights and try to remember how long it's been since you started. A month? A year? More? The stars above don't answer. The wind doesn't care, and the sun will rise again, same as it always does. Not because it's Monday, not because it's any particular day, just because it's time. And so you rise, and so you ride. And the trail forgets what day it is, just like you. It never stops. The wind. It isn't loud or violent most days, just steady. Always there, always touching you. It creeps across the plains, low and constant, like something with purpose. You feel it in your ears, on your knuckles, in the gap between your collar and your neck. But more than anywhere, you feel it on your face. It dries your skin, pulls at your cheeks, scours the ridge of your nose, and it chews at your lips, day after day, without mercy. You don't smoke, never did, but your mouth tells a different story. Cracked, gray, chapped to the point of bleeding. You lick them without thinking, trying to soften the edges and only make it worse. The wind takes the moisture and leaves nothing behind but a tight, stinging burn. You try covering your face with a scarf. It helps, for an hour. Maybe 2. Then the wind finds its way through again. It always does. The cracks start small, thin lines at the corners of your mouth. You feel them stretch when you talk, if you talk. You feel them open wider when you yawn. They don't bleed at first, just sting. A warning, but you ignore it. What choice do you have? You ride into the wind, not away from it. And it meets you head on, drying out each breath before it even hits your lungs. By midday, your bottom lip is raw, the top one stiff. Every word hurts a little. Every bite of dry food leaves a smear of red behind. You press your fingers to the split skin and feel the heat rising beneath it. It pulses. It tightens. The skin curls at the edges, dead and dry and ready to peel. You don't peel it, not because you're careful, but because you're used to it. The pain is small, constant, expected, like the soreness in your knees, like the weight in your hands. You think about balm sometimes, the kind your mother used to keep near the hearth in a tiny tin. You remember the smell, faint and sweet, like mint and wax. But there's no room for balm out here, no place for softness. If you had any, you used it weeks ago. If someone else has some, they don't offer, and you don't ask. So you rub your lips with the edge of your glove, rough leather scraped against ruined skin. It helps for a moment, then stings worse. You press your mouth into your shoulder, your sleeve, the crook of your elbow, anything to block the wind, even for a second. But the trail doesn't stop. The cattle don't stop. And so neither do you. You ride through the burn, through the ache, until your lips go numb. And when feeling comes back, it brings fresh cracks, fresh blood, another layer of pain on top of what's already there. By night, your lips are swollen. Your mouth barely opens. You try to eat, and every chew pulls at skin that wasn't ready to move. Salt from old meat burns the raw spots. You take smaller bites. You chew longer. You don't complain. You don't wince. You just endure it, like you endure everything else. You spit blood once, quietly, into the dirt beside you, and no one notices. Or maybe they do. Maybe they just don't mention it. You lie down with your face half buried in your blanket, trying to hide it from the cold air that still moves even after the fire dies. You sleep with your mouth closed, not because you want to, but because it hurts too much to open. And in the morning, when you wake, your lips have stuck together in the night, dried blood holding them shut. You wet them slowly, carefully, and start the day again, the wind waiting, the sun rising, and your mouth already aching, preparing to split once more. They look better from a distance. Towns, a few roofs breaking the horizon, maybe a church steeple, maybe the thin rise of chimney smoke that curls in the wind like something warm and promising. For a moment, you imagine it's rest. A meal that isn't dry, a bed that isn't the ground, voices that don't belong to men half asleep in the saddle. But as you ride closer, the illusion thins. The buildings lean. The streets blur into mud or dust, depending on the season. The smell hits you first. Manure, beer, sweat, garbage no one buried. Dogs bark, children stare. Some wave, but most just watch, half curious, half bored. You pass hitching posts chewed down to splinters, windows caked in grime, the cracked sign of a saloon that might once have had a name. You tie off your horse, stretch your back, and step into the noise like it's water you never meant to enter. Inside, the floors are sticky. Boots slide where they should grip. The tables are stained, the stools uneven. Someone's laughing too loud. Someone's snoring in the corner. The bartender doesn't look up. He's seen your type before. Every chair creaks. Every glass has a chip. You order something, anything, and it comes bitter, flat, half warm. The food smells better than it tastes, or maybe your memory played tricks on you again. You eat fast, not from hunger, but from habit. And the voices around you blur into one low hum, all talking about nothing that matters. Cattle prices, weather, a fight that happened 2 nights ago. No one asks your name. No one needs to. You're just another pair of boots in the mud, passing through. The walls feel too close. The air feels thick. You finish your drink, wipe your mouth, and step back outside, hoping the sky will feel wider again. You might stay the night, if there's space. A bed that smells like smoke and old sweat. Sheets that don't quite fit. A pillow that collapses the moment your head finds it. You lie there staring at the ceiling through half-lidded eyes, wondering why this feels worse than the open dirt. You hear everything. The creak of boards, the cough from the next room, the quiet scratch of rats under the floor. Your back hurts the same. Your legs cramp the same. The window lets in the same wind, just filtered through glass. You wake up just as tired, maybe more. You dress in silence. You pack what little you have. And as you leave the room, you don't look back. There's nothing to miss. The town offered a roof, not relief. A meal, not nourishment. You walk past the same barking dogs, the same hollow eyes, the same false promise, and then you ride again. Back into the dust, into the silence, into the wind that dries your lips and numbs your hands. The town fades behind you, the noise shrinking into memory. It wasn't escape. It wasn't reward. It was just another stop along a line that never ends. Another place that tried to feel like more and failed. You think about the warmth that never reached your skin, the food that never filled you, the bed that never held you. Towns don't welcome you. They tolerate you. And when you leave, they don't notice. You're not part of them. You never were. Out here, you belong to the road, to the trail, to the silence. And no town, no matter how bright its lanterns, can change that. You ride on, not because the next place will be better, but because there's nothing to stay for, nothing worth remembering, nothing that feels like home. Some things stay with you, whether you want them to or not. They don't come with photographs or names carved into wood, just moments, quick ones, quiet ones. Someone falling behind on the trail, someone slipping from the saddle when no one was watching, a scream that didn't echo long, or a silence that stretched too wide to fill. You don't write them down. You don't tell them over the fire. You just carry them, like stones in your pocket, like worn patches on your coat. They sit there, beneath the surface of every day, under every meal, every ride, every restless night. Sometimes a voice comes back to you, not as sound, but as memory. Not what they said, but how they said it. The way a man looked at the sky before the storm. The way another held his reins a little tighter the day before he disappeared. They aren't stories, not anymore. They're pieces of something unfinished, something too heavy to share, too ordinary to mourn. One of them drowned, though no one calls it that. The creek was swollen from rain, the bank was slick, and the horse jumped wrong. You saw it happen. Just a flash of movement, a shout, a splash, and then nothing. By the time you reached the edge, the hat was floating downstream. You never saw him again. You rode on because what else could you do? The cattle didn't stop. The sun didn't wait. Another fell sick, a cough that grew deeper each morning. You offered water. He waved you off, said he'd be fine. The next day, his bedroll was cold. No one spoke over his body. You dug a hole. You moved on. That's how it goes. Quick endings, quiet ones, no songs, no goodbyes. Just a man less at the fire, a voice gone from the line. You remember it, not because it was tragic, but because it happened. Because you were there. And still, you don't speak of it. You ride beside others who carry the same weight. You can see it in their posture, the way their eyes don't linger, the way they chew slower when no one's talking. You know they've seen it too. Men fall, vanish, fade, but no one shares. No one leans over and says, "Do you remember him?" Because out here, remembering out loud makes it real. And if it's real, it might hurt. So you hold it in. Not like a secret, but like a scar. Something personal. Something you don't show unless someone asks, and no one asks. So you keep riding, keep eating, keep waking up and going to sleep with the same shadows pressed behind your ribs. The stories settle in you, not just the deaths, the disappearances, the men who left and didn't come back, but the strange, small moments too. A song hummed off key, a joke told twice, the sound of someone praying when they thought no one else could hear. You don't know what will happen to these stories. Maybe they'll fade. Maybe they'll blur. Names replaced with silence, faces forgotten. Or maybe they'll stay, sharp and exact, even as everything else slips away. But you know one thing, you won't tell them. Not in town, not to a stranger, not even to the men beside you who might have been there too. You keep them because they belong to you, because speaking them would change them. And out here, change is rare, dangerous even. So the stories stay where they are, quiet, close, unseen. You carry them without pride, without shame, just the way you carry your rope, your knife, your scars. Not because you want to, but because someone has to. Because someone was there, and someone still remembers. You don't notice it at first. Change doesn't come like a storm. It comes like wind on stone. Slow, unseen, inevitable. One day you ride with your shoulders back, eyes scanning the hills, hands light on the reins. The next, your spine has sunk into itself. Your gaze dropped to the ground ahead. Your hat sits lower, brim tugged down, not for sun, but for habit, for silence. Your step, once fast and purposeful, now drags just a little. You tell yourself it's the dust, the slope, the saddle. But it isn't. It's the weight. The slow, silent weight of a life that never pauses, that grinds, that rubs. The trail wears you down the way leather wears against skin, too gently to scream, too constantly to ignore. Until one morning you reach for your boot and feel the stiffness in your fingers and realize they don't close all the way anymore. And maybe haven't for weeks. You start to speak less, not just to others, but to yourself. The voice in your head quiets, not from peace, but from disuse. The thoughts are still there. Worry, memory, small flashes of something you used to be, but they come less often and with less force. You measure time differently now, not in hours or days, but in what hurts and what doesn't. Your knees, always. Your lower back, usually. Your right shoulder when it rains. You forget how tall you stood before. You forget how often you smiled. There's a stillness that's taken root in you. Not calm, not contentment. Just stillness. Like something that stopped growing and decided that was enough. You carry less, not because you've learned to live simply, but because everything extra feels like a burden. A second shirt, a folded letter, a name, even your own. There are mirrors in some towns behind bar counters or nailed above wash basins. You catch yourself in them now and then. The first time you looked twice, not because you liked what you saw, but because you didn't recognize it. The man in the glass had darker skin from the sun, deeper lines around the mouth. The eyes were tired in a way that doesn't sleep off. The beard was patchier, the cheeks leaner. You stared for a moment, not with vanity, but with confusion, not wondering what happened, just quietly surprised that it did. You step away without a word, because that man's still riding with you, still holding the reins, still waking up each morning to the same sky and same ache. The only difference is now you know what he looks like. And maybe that makes it harder. You think sometimes about the man who first took this trail, not someone else. You, the earlier version, the one who saddled up thinking it would be hard but honest, that work meant clarity, that distance meant freedom. You wonder where that man went, if he's still somewhere inside you, or if the trail took him piece by piece, burning his skin, bending his spine, drying out his voice, until nothing familiar was left. You're not bitter, not angry, just older in a way that isn't about years. You ride slower now, not to enjoy the view, but because there's no rush. No one's waiting. No end that feels different from the middle. The trail doesn't demand much, just everything. And in return, it gives you time. Time to wear down. Time to vanish into your own rhythm. And one day, without knowing when it happened, you'll realize you've changed. Not into someone better, not into someone worse, just into someone else. And the trail will keep going, and you'll keep following, because that's what you do now. That's what you are. The weight is always there, on your hip, against your ribs, beneath the coat that barely keeps out the wind. You feel it when you mount up. You feel it when you lie down. A small press of metal that never lets you forget. The revolver doesn't make you feel powerful. It doesn't make you feel safe. It just reminds you that out here, safety is a thing you carry, not a thing you find. You don't draw it often. Weeks go by without your hand brushing the grip. Months maybe without a shot. And still, you check it every morning. Spin the cylinder. Tap the dust from the barrel. Make sure the hammer's smooth and the trigger doesn't catch. Not because you expect trouble, but because trouble doesn't care if you're ready. And if the day comes when you need it, it has to work. Most of the time, it's just dead weight. A burden in your belt. Another thing to polish, to oil, to protect from rain and rust. You think about leaving it behind sometimes. On dry weeks when nothing stirs but cattle and wind. When the only noise is the clink of tack and the scuff of hooves. But you don't. You never do. Because you've seen what happens when someone does. The man who left his gun wrapped in oilcloth at the bottom of his pack, thinking he wouldn't need it. Thinking the storm or the ride or the man in the saloon wasn't dangerous enough to matter. He was wrong, and the sound of that mistake still echoes. You don't forget it. You don't forgive it. You just tighten your belt and shift the holster where it sits better against your thigh. It's not about being ready to kill. It's about not being caught without the choice. The truth is, most men don't want to shoot. The ones who do are the ones who shouldn't carry. You learn that fast. A gun isn't a solution. It's an ending. Fast, final, and loud in a world that's already too quiet. You remember the last time you pulled the trigger, the jolt in your hand, the echo bouncing off canyon walls, the way everything held still for a breath afterward, like the land itself had gone silent in respect or disapproval. You couldn't tell which. You didn't sleep much that night. Not because of guilt, not exactly. Just because some sounds stay with you long after they stop ringing. You cleaned the revolver twice the next morning, not for ceremony, just to remind yourself that it was still yours, still under your hand, still waiting if needed. And then you holstered it again and rode on like nothing happened. Because out here, nothing happening is always temporary. So you carry, every day, without question, not for show, not for pride. Just as part of your body now, like the boots on your feet, like the knife on your belt. You don't check if others are armed. You assume they are. Same as you. Same reasons. Same silence. You pass strangers on the trail and nod, hand never far from the grip, even if your face stays calm. You sleep with it close. You wake with it first. You wear it even when your back aches from the weight, even when the leather leaves a raw line against your hip. Because out here, you only get 1 second, one decision, one chance to speak a language older than words, and most days you say nothing. Most days, you carry the weight and ride through the silence. but you never forget it's there, and the trail never lets you. They never feel clean, never truly dry. Even under the sharp sun, even after hours in open air, your clothes stay damp in ways you can't explain. The sweat seeps in before noon and never quite leaves. It stains your collar, settles into the back of your knees, clings under your arms and around your waistband. You peel your shirt away from your skin only to feel it stick again moments later. The wind might pass through, but it doesn't lift the weight. The fabric, stretched thin by salt and heat, begins to harden, then soften, then fray. The seams pull apart in quiet ways, just enough for dust to find its way in. You try not to notice the smell, old sweat and sun-baked grime, a mixture of horsehair, fire smoke, and your own tired body. You've stopped hoping for the comfort of fresh cotton. All you ask now is that it holds together. At night, it gets worse. You sleep close to the ground, the blanket barely enough to cover you. The air cools, but the moisture doesn't leave. Instead, it shifts, condenses, soaks your shirt from the outside this time. The dew settles in your cuffs, your shoulders, the knees of your pants. You roll over in your sleep and feel the chill spread through cloth that was never warm to begin with. You wake up colder than you were when you lay down, your clothes heavy with night air and breath and something that feels like resignation. You pull them tighter anyway, not because they help, but because they're yours, and because putting on new ones isn't an option. There are no spares, no fresh sets folded in a bag. Everything you wear, you've worn for weeks, months, maybe longer. There's no way to tell anymore. The stitching is your calendar, the tears, your clock. You try drying them by the fire sometimes, drape them over a rock, hold them near the smoke, but the damp doesn't lift. It settles deeper, curling into the threads like it belongs there. If you hold them too close, they scorch. If you hold them too far, they stay wet. You find the middle only once in a while, and even then, it doesn't last. The moment you put them back on, the sweat returns, your skin sticks, your socks darken, your boots grow soft around the edges, then harden with salt until they rub blisters into your heels. You adjust, pull, reshape, but it never works for long. The damp always wins. You ride with that dampness clinging to your thighs, pooling at the small of your back, soaking through your hatband. You smell it long before anyone else does, but no one mentions it. Everyone carries the same burden. Eventually, the fabric just gives out. A split at the shoulder, a hole at the knee, the elbow worn thin enough to see skin through it. You stitch where you can, patch where you must, tie knots when nothing else holds. There's no vanity in it, no shame either. Just necessity, just survival. You don't care how it looks, only that it stays in one piece for another week, another ride, another storm. You carry a needle and a bit of thread in your roll, but the thread is almost gone now. When it runs out, you'll make do. Tear from the inside hem. Use sinew if you must. Because out here, clothing isn't clothing. It's armor, shelter, memory. And when it finally falls apart, when there's more hole than cloth, you won't mourn it. You'll just keep riding, skin to wind, sweat to air, until something else takes its place, or until you don't need it anymore. You stopped keeping track a long time ago. Not on purpose. It just slipped away, like everything else. 1 year you remembered. Maybe scratched a mark on your saddle horn. or carved it into a post at a way station no one visits anymore. But then the days blurred. The trail stretched too far, too long. You lost count of how many mornings had passed, how many seasons had turned. And now, even if someone asked, you wouldn't be able to answer clearly. A month, maybe. A season. Somewhere between the first frost and the last storm. You think you were born in spring, or maybe late winter. But the truth is, the years have folded in on themselves. And out here, without clocks, without calendars, without anyone to remember with you, it doesn't matter. There's no cake, no candles, no voice waiting to say your name. Just another day like any other. There's no one to remind you, no one to tap you on the shoulder with a smile, no one to set a plate in front of you or sing out of tune. You ride with men who barely speak. You sleep under stars that never change. You pass through towns where your face is just another in a long, tired line. Even if someone did know, they wouldn't mark it. There are no parties out here, no gifts, just dust and leather and the soft sound of cattle shifting in the dark. You imagine it sometimes, someone remembering, a nod over coffee, a spare biscuit handed your way. But it's just a thought, and it passes quickly. Because the truth is, you've been out here too long, too far from anyone who might have known, or cared, or said it once when you were young enough to believe it mattered. The men you ride with, they don't mention their birthdays either. Maybe they've forgotten too. Or maybe they carry the date like a quiet wound, something private and fading. No one asks. No one offers. You learn quickly not to expect anything more than the sound of boots in dirt and the crack of firewood in the evening. You mark time by what breaks, not by what begins. The day your canteen split, the week your horse threw a shoe, the morning your gloves finally wore through at the palms. Those are the anniversaries now, and they don't come with celebration. Just another chore, another patch, another silent hour on the trail. Even your own body has stopped keeping count. The aches feel the same no matter the month. The face in the mirror, when you see one, doesn't answer your questions, just blinks slowly and waits. And so the day passes like the one before. You eat, you ride, you shift your weight in the saddle and feel the usual pull in your back. The fire burns, the sky darkens. No one says a word, and that's fine, because no one remembers, and maybe deep down, you don't want them to. A birthday means another year gone, another season survived. And out here, survival isn't something you boast about. It's something you carry. Quietly. Without thanks. Without song. You fall asleep to the same stars. Wake to the same wind. And if, in the back of your mind, something whispers that maybe today was the day, maybe once long ago, you let it pass. You don't answer. You don't dwell. Because in a life where every day demands the same from you, the calendar doesn't hold meaning, and neither does the number of years. Only that you're still here, still moving, still breathing. That, for now, is enough. It happens slowly, the way most things do out here. You go days without saying more than a grunt or a word or two. Yeah. Hold. Move. You answer with a nod when someone asks something. You wave instead of calling out. And before you realize it, your voice begins to feel distant, like something you used to own but left behind by accident. You hear the others speak around the fire. their voices low and worn, but still there. Some drawl slow and wide like open plains. Others clip their words short, like they're saving air. You listen, sometimes even follow the rhythm of what they say. But when you try to answer, something catches. It's not fear, not shyness, just distance. Like the gap between your thoughts and your mouth has grown longer than you remember. You open it, start a sentence, then stop. Not because the words are wrong, but because they sound wrong in your head before they even reach your tongue. There are times when you try to speak and don't recognize the sound. It's rougher now. Not just dry, not just hoarse, but warped. As if the dust and cold and silence have reshaped your voice into something older, something cracked and unsure. You hear yourself say a phrase, a name, and flinch at the echo of it. It doesn't belong to you, not the way it used to. It's slower, slurred at the edges, unfamiliar. You repeat a sentence just to test it, to see if it settles the second time. It doesn't. The others don't notice. They're half lost in their own silences. No one talks much unless they have to. No one asks questions that don't matter. So your voice fades, not from neglect, but from lack of need. It's like a trail that's grown over from disuse. Still there, maybe, but no longer certain where it leads. You start to wonder what your voice used to sound like. You try to picture it, how it came out in a warm room, across a table, to someone who listened. A word said with ease, not effort. A joke that came naturally. A story told without the weight of time behind it. You can remember the shape of those moments, but not the sound. Not anymore. You mouth the words at night sometimes, watching the firelight catch in your breath. Just to remind yourself it still works. Just to feel the air move. It's strange speaking into silence. Stranger still when the silence answers by not changing. When your own words feel like they disturb the air more than fill it. And after a while you stop trying. Not because you can't, but because it starts to feel like a waste. Like using something you no longer understand. The voice becomes a memory. Not gone, just softened. Like a tool left out too long, dulled at the edges. You know it'll come back if you need it. If someone speaks to you. If someone needs help. If something breaks and you're the only one nearby. But until then, it stays buried. You communicate with hands, with glances, with the way you shift in your saddle. There's no beauty in it, no poetry. Just function. Just silence that doesn't ask for more. And you carry that silence like everything else. Wrapped tight, tucked deep. A part of you that rides and eats and sleeps and keeps going. Because out here, the trail doesn't care what you sound like. The wind doesn't ask for your name. And your voice, forgotten or not, is just another thing that gets quieter with time. It comes from nowhere, or at least it feels that way. One moment the sky is pale and wide, a little too quiet, a little too still. Then the wind shifts. The air gets heavy in your chest, thick with the scent of dust that hasn't risen yet but soon will. The clouds roll in slow at first, dragging shadows across the earth like a dark hand spreading its fingers. You see it. You smell it. But there's nowhere to go. Maybe you scan the horizon, left, right, over your shoulder. But the land is flat, open, merciless. No trees, no bluff, no barn or broken fence to crouch beneath. Just you, your horse, the cattle somewhere behind you, and the sky that's about to break open. You know what comes next. You've seen it before. And still, each time feels worse than the last. You move fast, but it doesn't matter. You can't outrun it. The wind kicks up first, biting at your face, driving grit into your eyes, into your teeth. You pull your bandana up, tip your hat down, and ride into it anyway. You can't stop, not yet. The trail doesn't end just because the sky turns black. Then comes the sound, a low rumble that crawls through the soles of your boots before it reaches your ears. Thunder that doesn't crack so much as roll. Slow, deep, endless. The kind that shakes your chest and makes your horse's ears flatten. Lightning flashes once, twice, far off, then closer, and then it's here. The rain starts sideways. Not drops, but sheets. Cold, brutal, stinging. It soaks you in seconds. Your coat turns to dead weight. Your hat leaks at the brim. Your boots fill from the top down. And still, you ride until riding's no longer possible. Sometimes you find shelter, an outcrop of rock, the lee side of a hill, the low remains of an abandoned barn. But sometimes there's nothing. Just open sky and wet earth. And when that happens, you do the only thing you can. You dismount. You drop to the ground. You curl yourself inward, like a sack of grain trying not to split. You pull your coat tighter. You press your face into your arms or under your hat. You wait. The storm doesn't care. It doesn't hesitate. It lashes and slaps and pulls at you, howling across the plains like it's trying to erase every shape from the land. You feel it find the seams in your clothes, the cracks in your skin, the soft parts of you that still feel like flesh. The cold settles in, not as a sharp stab, but as a slow crawl, up your spine, behind your knees, into your fingers curled too tight to shake. When it's over, it's not really over. The wind dies down. The thunder moves on, but the rain lingers, now softer, now steady, like it's mocking what just passed. You lift your head. Everything is wet. The ground beneath you, your coat, your blanket if you had one. The firewood you tried to keep dry is soaked through. You stand up slowly, bones heavy, boots sloshing, water streaming from your hat, like tears you forgot to cry. You don't speak. You don't curse. You just begin again. Tighten your saddle. Wring out your gloves. Shake what you can from your sleeves. The storm never waited. It didn't ask if you were ready, and it never will. That's just the way of things out here. You brace for it, suffer through it, and keep going. Because there's no prize for making it through. Just the trail, still there beneath your feet, waiting like it always does. You wake up already hurting. Not the kind of pain that surprises you, but the kind that settles in overnight, like dust in a boot. Your back is stiff. Your throat is dry. One knee won't bend the way it should. You feel heat in your chest that shouldn't be there. A fever maybe, or something close to it. Your head pulses in time with your heartbeat, slow and dull, like a hammer under a blanket. But there's no pause for it. No one to hand you water and say, rest. The cattle still need driving. The sun still rises. The others are already moving, tightening saddles, packing rolls, stirring cold beans. You shift to sit up and your ribs push back like they've had enough. But it doesn't matter. You swing your legs around. You stand. Because the day doesn't care how you feel, and the trail doesn't stop for anyone who lags behind. The horse moves slow at first, maybe sensing something different in your posture. Maybe not. You grab the saddle horn harder than usual just to stay upright. Your boot finds the stirrup like it's done 100 times before, and you climb up, joints groaning, body resisting. In the saddle, you sway more than you ride. Your shoulders slump. Your grip loosens. But you're there. You're moving, and that's what matters. The herd rolls forward, dull and steady. Dust kicks up into the back of your throat, mixes with the dry burn of whatever illness you're carrying. You swallow it all. You don't cough. You don't ask for help. The others glance your way, maybe once, maybe twice, but they say nothing, not out of coldness, just because they know, because they've done the same. There's a rhythm to this life, and it doesn't stop for soreness or sickness or the slow rot of fatigue. The sun climbs higher, and the weight in your limbs deepens. Every movement feels like a decision. Adjusting in the saddle, reaching for your canteen, turning to check the stragglers. You do it all, but slower, quieter. The heat cooks you from above. The saddle rubs you raw from below, and the horse doesn't stop. It can't. If it stops, you stop. And if you stop, you fall behind. Falling behind isn't an option. You think about rest. Not real rest, just 5 minutes with your back against a rock, your eyes closed. But there's no such thing. Not here. You stay in motion, not because you want to, but because it's the only thing that keeps you from slipping completely. You ride through the fever, through the ache, through the throb in your temples and the tremble in your legs. The body protests, but you've learned how to ride past that voice. You've had to. By the time the sun sinks, you're somewhere new, though it all looks the same. Another stretch of earth, another place to lie down. You dismount stiffly, both feet hitting the ground like they don't belong to you. You walk like you're balancing a sack of rocks on your shoulders. You loosen the cinch, rub the horse's neck, mutter a word of thanks. You don't expect it to understand. The fire is small. The food tastes like dust. Your hands shake when you eat. But still, you eat. Still, you sit with the others in silence. Still, you roll your blanket out under a sky that never once looked down and offered mercy. You close your eyes knowing tomorrow will ask the same of you again. No matter how you feel, no matter what breaks, you never stop moving. Not because you're strong, but because nothing out here ever stops. Not the trail, not the herd, not the wind, and not you. Not yet. You sit by the fire, knees pulled close, the last of your meal already cooling in the tin. There's not much left to do now but wait for the dark to settle fully. And it does, slow and even, like a curtain being pulled across the sky. The others say little, their shapes barely outlined in the flicker of flame. A few cough. One adjusts his hat and stares at nothing. No one laughs. No one hums. You stare into the coals as if they'll show you something new, but they never do. Just another night, another piece of time carved off and dropped behind you like an old boot print in the dirt. You stopped expecting letters long ago. No one knows where you are. No one's writing anyway. You couldn't say what day it is if someone asked. You couldn't say if it matters. The same sun rose. The same cattle walked. The same dust clung to your skin like it always does. The thought comes slowly, like water finding its way downhill. You wonder quietly, vaguely, if this is it. Not in a sad way, not even in a desperate one. Just curious. Is this all there is? You've ridden every type of trail. You've seen men break, and you've seen them fade without ever falling. You've eaten the same meals so often you could chew them in your sleep. You know the names of all the stars and none of the months. You've woken with frost in your hair and your back locked stiff. You've ridden through places with names, but never stayed long enough to remember them. You've seen towns that smelled worse than the trail, and people who smiled with their mouths and not their eyes. So maybe this is all there is. Another sunrise, another stretch of trail, another piece of meat, another silence that fills the night, thick and undisturbed. You try to remember what you wanted before all this. You try to picture the first time you mounted a horse, what it felt like. But it's hazy now, distant, like something that happened to someone else. Was it adventure you sought? Freedom? You suppose it doesn't matter. Whatever it was folded and flattened and turned to routine a long time ago. Now, you ride because you ride. You move because stopping feels wrong. Even when you stay still, your thoughts move in slow loops. Where's the herd? How's the weather? Will the creek still run in the morning? You look around at the others, and you know they feel it too. That hollow space where something else used to be. You'd ask them, but there's no language for it anymore. Just the fire, and the stars, and the heavy quiet that presses in from all sides. Eventually, someone stands, stretches, kicks dirt at the fire. The rest follow, slow and automatic. You do too. Your body knows the motion better than your mind does. You unroll your blanket. You lie down facing away from the wind. The ground is hard, but not as hard as it was when you started. Your hands curl close to your chest. You stare up at the same sky and feel no comfort. Just cold light and the faint breath of distant wind. No one speaks, no one says goodnight. There's nothing to mark the end of this day or the beginning of the next. Just another sunset passed. Just another night waded through. And still, a small part of you lingers on the question. Not loud, not demanding, just there, quiet and still. Is this all there is? Maybe, probably, but you don't ask out loud. You just close your eyes and wait for the next day to begin, whether you want it to or not. You mount before the light fully returns. The ground is stiff with the cold that never left. Your legs ache. Your fingers are clumsy as they fumble at the cinch, and your breath clouds in the pale air. But the horse waits, like always. You swing your leg over, settle into the saddle that fits your shape, not because it was made for you, but because your bones have given up resisting it. The leather creaks. The blanket shifts. And just like that, you're moving again. No one told you to. No one asked you to. But the trail is there, winding off into the hills. And you follow it because that's what you do. It doesn't ask questions. It doesn't promise anything. It just keeps going. The motion is slow, steady, familiar. The hooves fall in rhythm. The reins sit heavy in your hands, though you barely need to guide them anymore. Your body knows what's ahead before your eyes do. The same dry grass, the same empty ridges, the same wire of wind whistling past your ears. Sometimes you pass a fence line, or a creek too thin to drink from. Sometimes a hawk circles overhead, watching for something smaller, something slower. You used to take notice. You used to name the birds, study the trees. Now you ride through them like pages in a book you've read too many times. There is no urgency, no particular place to be, just the certainty that stopping isn't an option. Not because you can't, but because you wouldn't know what to do if you did. Your body complains in ways you've grown used to. The bruise at your hip from a bad dismount 3 weeks ago. The old break in your wrist that stiffens every morning. The skin on your neck, red from wind and sun and the sharp edge of time. It doesn't slow you. Pain, like hunger or cold, is just part of the scenery now. You shift in the saddle, adjust the blanket beneath you, watch the land stretch out with that same dull color it always has, neither inviting nor hostile, just there. And still, you ride. Not toward anything, not away, just because that's what this life is. Forward motion without promise. Once maybe you thought it would lead somewhere, some town where people smiled easier, some stretch of land to call your own, a place to put your tools down and your head up. But that thought feels like someone else's now, someone softer, someone with clean hands. The you that exists now is built of trail dust and routine, of unsaid thoughts and days that bleed into each other. You ride because there are cattle to watch, fences to check, ground to cover. You ride because someone has to, and because the horse under you still moves, still trusts the weight on its back. And so you go, not because it's easy, not because you want to, but because you're still here, still breathing, still riding. And maybe, at the end of it all, that's enough. You don't carry stories for others. You don't leave tracks that anyone will follow. But the trail knows you. The wind has learned your name. And the horse beneath you, tired, patient, just as worn, knows the shape of your silence. So you ride. Not with hope, not with purpose, just with presence. Because the trail didn't end yesterday. Because no one else took the reins. Because your hands, cracked and calloused as they are, still hold steady. The sky may change, the ground may shift, but you, silent, steady, enduring, ride on.